Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Rock Your Reinvention, the show that gives you all the tools and tips you need to reinvent your life in 30 minutes or less. And we do this by interviewing amazing women who have been there, done that, and reinvented their life in some way, shape, or form. So today, I am so excited to introduce all of you to Kim. She is coming to us live from Trinidad and Tobago. So, very excited to have an international guest on the show today. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. I know we were just saying it would be lovely if I could say I was coming from the sunny Caribbean, but it's really gray and really rainy today. It's actually even a little bit chilly.
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully it won't last because usually down in the Caribbean, like it just kind of like comes through and then it's gone.
Exactly. And my version of chili and yours are two totally different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Do tell me, what is chili for you?
Do you really want to know?
I do.
Anything below 80.
See, that's why I need to move to a tropical island because my husband is like, no, this is nice. We get all 4 seasons. I'm like, yeah, I don't need 2 of the 4. Like I can totally do without anything below 70. So that's why I feel like I would be better suited further south. But that's the reinvention 2.0. I'm just lucky to be out of Jersey at this point. Well, listen, before we kick off, I'd love to have you just do a basic intro. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and then we'll dig in a little bit.
All right. So, my name is Kim, and I am a relationship mentor. I help moms, all ladies in general. You don't have to be a mom. Nurture or bring back the love and romance in your relationship. So,
I love that.
Yes.
Who doesn't want more romance and fun in their relationship?
Fun. Thank you. This is a word that we don't use enough in our relationships. They should be fun because that fun keeps the attraction going, keeps the excitement there. It literally is what makes you wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm glad I'm with this person.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I want to talk about that in a minute, but take me back to this point. Now, I know that you were a teacher. You still are a teacher. You actually still teach. But there was a moment where you had this, like, something must have happened, or maybe you had a thought or an idea, and you were like, I'm going to pivot and I'm also going to start a business. So walk me through what was going on. What were you feeling? What did that look like?
It was, I don't think this is unique to me. It was that point where I just went from loving my job. I mean, we've all been there. We've had those jobs where I can't imagine doing anything else. My husband used to send me job descriptions for other places and I wouldn't even open the links. I'm like, why are you wasting my time? This is where I'm meant to be. You know, what are the things you're grateful for? My family, my job, and something else. My job was always one of the top things I was grateful for, not because of the income, because I absolutely adored it. I love the creativity, the freedom, the flexibility, everything about it. And then things changed. And all of the creativity and flexibility that had been the most attractive parts of that job suddenly replaced with bureaucracy and administration and forms to fill out and justifications for every blessed thing. And then I began to realize, while I did love teaching and I believe that I do have a gift for teaching, it doesn't have to be in a college scenario.
Sure.
But the thing that had really hooked me into that job was the sense of freedom that I had while I was there and the sense of creativity, because I would be able to create brand new courses. I had control over how I delivered them. And that was taken away. And that was the point where I realized, no.
Right.
I've been doing this thing at that point, I think I've been doing it for almost 10 years. And I'm like, I know how these students need to learn. Yep. I don't need someone coming in and telling me I've read, 20 books on educational theory. I'm like, great, I'm in a classroom. Okay.
I'm actually doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was it. I'm like, no, I need to create a space where I can use my gifts for teaching, my gifts for creativity, and marry it with my clear desire for freedom of time, freedom of, prioritizing, freedom of, decision making. So that's when I decided this is what I'm going to do.
Yep. And I love how you brought that up, that like you loved it until you didn't. And I think that so many women can relate to that, because there was a time that I loved marketing. There was a time that I
Mhm.
loved my corporate job, you know, and I was on the corporate bandwagon, and I was posting on LinkedIn about how great this company was to work for. And I was all in
Yeah.
until I wasn't, right? And all of a sudden it just was like I outgrew that space. I needed something else. And a lot of it had to do with that lack of freedom, the lack of flexibility, and the lack of creativity. We need
Exactly.
that,
We
especially as women.
do.
I think we need creativity in our lives.
Yes. And I'm not saying creativity to muck things up. I'm just saying
Sure.
we have to try new tools. How are you going to find better ways of doing things if you don't try different ways of doing things?
Yeah. So I'm really curious about this, because you call yourself a relationship mentor. So
Right.
why did you decide to become a relationship mentor and maybe not a coach? Or like, what drove you into the relationship field? Was there some sort of driving factor here?
Yes, there was. So when I decided I was going to start my own business, I said, well, the easiest place to start was the thing that I had been doing for all those years, which was teaching Spanish and Latin American history. And so I created these extremely culture rich language programs. And I
That's
started,
so cool.
and I mean, I loved it. It was like just combining all the things I loved into one place. But the interesting thing was that a lot of people who were coming to me were actually women in relationships with people from Spanish speaking cultures.
Oh.
So there was that. Um, I'd also been, my husband and I have been together for 23 years, married for 14 of them. So most of our friends don't even know us, unless they were our friends from way back when. They don't
Right.
know us as two individual people. We've just been Kim and Silvero the whole long time. They've known us.
Yep.
And I think that's why the word mentor stuck with me, because it was a natural position that I had been holding for all those years. So even with the work that I was doing now with these women on their language skills, but would always come back to their relationships, because it was that idea of, you may have some language barriers, you may have some culture barriers, but those are only exacerbating what is already a relationship issue. So
Mm.
you can't leave this container and be like, well, now I can speak Spanish, so we're not going to have any problems. Because, well, no, that's not how
Right.
it works. So it was this idea that I had already been guiding people and answering their questions. We are that couple, and people are like, why are you always together? Because
Yeah.
we like each other.
Wait. What a beautiful thing.
And so I think that's why the word coach always felt like, oh, I don't know why. Coach just didn't
Yeah.
feel right for me, as opposed to just stepping into something I had already been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And also starting to charge a fee for it, right? Because I think there's a lot of women who are like, well, I'm just doing this and I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart and I'll just keep doing it. And it's like, look, I'm all for giving back and helping others. But at some point, when you've got such an amazing skill set that you're the go to person for something, like start charging a fee for it, get yourself paid. You deserve it.
Exactly. Exactly. And then that's where the whole business side of it comes in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's so cool that you still teach, because I truly think that a lot of women believe that it's all or nothing, right? Like either I have to have this corporate career or I'm going to leave and become an entrepreneur. And they don't necessarily see how to balance the two things. So, how do you balance teaching and your love of that career and also having time to relationship mentor?
Right. So, literally, we were just having a conversation today in with one of my clients. Schedule your priorities.
Yeah.
Don't prioritize your schedule. And that has been crucial. And the thing is, it sneaks up. So it sneaks up on you, right? You
Yeah.
start doing the things, and then you start doing more things, and then you start doing something else, and then suddenly you are swimming in activities and to-do lists, and you're not spending time with the family. You're not spending time with your partner. And I always
Yep.
say partner time is not necessarily family time. It's two different types of time.
Yes.
Don't say I'm lumping him or her in with the children. No, nope. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So there really came that moment where I was frustrated and angry most days because I was not completing all the tasks that I wanted in my own business.
Mm.
I felt guilty because I noticed that there were certain things in my regular job that I had no longer been doing as much of. But then there was a little bit of overcompensation in that space too, but I had to learn about that. And then I was now creating friction in my marriage because, this person who had always been available and up for going out and having fun was always chained to a desk.
Mm.
And it was just this idea of, well, when are you making time for us?
Right.
So I had to evaluate, what do I need to get done for the job, the teaching job.
Yeah.
All right. I looked at all the areas that I had been overcompensating. I'm like, okay, fine. Certain things I can stop doing and focus on the key things that need doing there. Got that under control. All right. I literally have to make time for my family. So I can't have said, I couldn't say, well, whatever is left at the end of the day. No. I had to,
Right.
yeah. I had to
Yeah.
decide. There's a cutoff point. There's a time when I have to get up from this space and move on. And I have to have a bedtime. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Yes.
And then I had to figure out what were the key money-making activities for my business.
Mm.
And then that got done in the business hours.
Yep.
And it might sound very rigid and compartmentalized. Sometimes it can feel that way, but I have a lot less guilt around,
Mm.
yeah. Should I be spending time? Should I be making calls now? No, now is family time. I'm supposed to be with my family. Should I be cooking dinner now? No, now this is business hours. So there's that. There's no more of that. And then
Right.
because I've done that, yeah, I can get to bed at a reasonable hour. I mean, that's something I talk about too. Going to bed with your partner at the same time on a regular basis is important.
Yes. I can't sleep without my partner. So if my husband doesn't come up at the same time, I literally will toss and turn until he finally comes up. And I will tell him, like, you have to come up with me because I'm not going to be able to fall asleep. So just come on.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're pretty good about it. A lot of nights, we do go up, but I've been guilty of that. I mean, oh my gosh, in my corporate days, I don't think we went to bed at the same time for I don't even know how long. And like a couple of times, like I would go up and be like, all right, well, we'll have sex or whatever, but I'm going to then go back and work. And then I would just leave them in the bed and be like, bye. And
Bye. Yes.
it was so toxic for our relationship.
Yes. That's it. Because then it became a thing to get done. I was doing it at one point too. Yeah. It's like, right, you can't complain. You got some. But
yep.
That's
just check the box. Yep.
But that's not what it's about.
No, not at all. And you're right. Scheduling, it sounds so like rigid or that like, people might be listening and think, well, that's not rocket science. Like, okay, just schedule stuff, but you would be amazed how many of us don't, right?
No.
Like I just had a client recently and she is working on her personal brand and wants to be more active on LinkedIn. I'm like, great. Do you have it in your calendar? Like, when are you going to actually do this activity? And she just looked at me and kind of smiled and she's like, no, like she knew I was going to say that and how simple it was. And she was like, no, I didn't put it in my calendar yet. But I'm like, all right, then let's pull it up. Let's do it right now and get it in the books so that you've at least got it scheduled. And then, holding yourself to it's a whole nother thing.
Exactly.
But you're more likely to hold yourself to it if it's in the calendar.
Exactly. You will.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that it's perfect. And there are times big
Sure.
projects will come up and you'll get distracted or you'll start working on something again and the time does start to slip away. But then you remember the bigger goal. I don't
Yes.
want to go back to being that angry person, that angry, frustrated woman who didn't, family would come home and I'll be like, oh crap, I have to go downstairs because they're home.
Right. You're like
No,
annoyed that they exist.
exactly. These are the people I love. These are the people why I'm supposed to be doing these things.
Yeah.
So it starts up here. And
Yeah,
it
and it's so funny because you said like the whole point of leaving, well not leaving because you're still there, but pivoting
Mhm.
from the college environment and doing kind of your own thing with the teaching was like you wanted that freedom and that flexibility. Now you've got it in this business and yet you're still been working all these crazy hours and you're not even taking advantage of the freedom and the flexibility to be like, oh, I'm going to shut off at 3 o'clock today and go hang out with my family.
Right,
And it's something that a
exactly.
lot of new entrepreneurs, I think, really slip into, especially if they come from more corporate backgrounds, that
Mm,
24/7 workaholic just keeps going. And it's like, wait, why am I doing this?
exactly. And I blame WhatsApp for that a lot right now because I think,
Yeah.
yeah, so many things. Like, can you shut that app off?
Yeah. Oh, sometimes like I use Voxer a lot with my clients, which is awesome because we can chat back and forth like with
Yeah.
our voices. So it's easier than typing back and forth in like a text message. But sometimes like the Voxer thing just keeps going off and I have to remember like it's after hours. I don't have to respond to that today.
No, exactly, exactly. But it's
Yeah.
all right. When we were talking about, the all or nothing or
Yes.
remember too, it's like sometimes and I'm sure, Karen, you talk about this too. Sometimes you need that job to help start funding
Sure.
your business.
Yep.
So that's another mindset shift, like stop resenting the job because maybe part of that job is now allowing you to start building the
Yes.
path that you want, the future that you want.
Yeah,
So,
that was very much the case for me too with the book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina. When
mhm,
I was first writing it and getting ready to publish it, I was using all of my corporate money, to put towards it and to pay for the editor and to, pay for the website
mhm.
that I needed to build up. And I had a different relationship with my job during that time because I saw it as the means to an end.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
don't
point.
Yes, and don't fall into the trap that I did. So when I started my business, I'm like, okay, so I've got to do pricing now. Fine. I'm going to price my stuff in a way that it lets me replace my current income. So I
Mm,
started doing that, working my way up to that. And then as I started getting close to it, I'm like, oh crap. I actually still do need to put money into my business too. So it's actually not that my business can just replace, it needs to replace and surpass because
yes.
this is the new life. This is the raise. This is it needs to pay for itself because then I don't know if you get to that point where it's like the money you start making on your business can now go back into your business,
Yep.
but then you're still living on your corporate job.
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. The business actually has to do it all. So then reevaluate your pricing because you didn't price
Yeah.
it properly the first time.
Right. Yeah, and really thinking about like what is your dream for that business? So like I knew very early on I was like I want to be a boutique firm. Like I do not want to be
Mhm.
a life coaching practice that mimics
Mhm.
therapy or you have like back-to-back calls all day long and by the time you get to your last client you're so wiped you can't give them the best of you. So I was like
Mhm.
no, I'm going to charge a premium to work with me, but they're going to get 150% of me, right? Like
Right.
they're going to get such a good premium experience that it's well worth the rate. So, like
Mhm.
going in with that mindset too is really helpful because it helps you charge what you're worth, but
Mhm.
also not feel like, any guilt or feel like, oh, they don't really deserve this. Like they're getting what they need and you're able to actually live
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
put food on the table, which is important.
Right.
That's why you go into business.
Exactly.
Yeah. Such a good point. So let's talk a little bit about relationships because we've kind of been on this, been dabbling in and out. I mean, they do take work, right?
They
Like
do.
We spend so much money on our weddings and planning our weddings, and we take weeks and months to get that just perfect. And then we get married, and a lot of the planning and the work goes right out the window, and we don't bother. So, why do you think that so many people's relationships go off track, and what can we do to get them back on track?
Complacency. So that is the
Ooh,
number one romance killer.
that's a good word.
Yeah. And it's easy to happen because you wake up next to this person, you go to bed next to this person, they're there, COVID happened, and they were there every blessed day, all day long.
Yep.
It's easy to take someone for granted.
Mhm.
It's also easy at that point when, you throw children into the mix and house care into the mix and life, all the life responsibilities, and you feel like this should be 50-50. Why am I doing more than they are? That's not always the case, but for many people that
Right.
is where they are. That's what they're watching.
Right.
There are also what's going on at that time too, this sense of, especially for women, I think, as when we, mid 30s heading into our 40s, in our mid 40s, we are literally beginning to think, wow, I'm heading towards that other stage of life, and what have I done? What's next? Is it really just mom? Is it really just, somebody's wife? What else am I?
Yeah.
And that little bit of self-doubt, or there's some self-loathing sometimes mixed in there too.
Sure.
But who bears the brunt of that?
Mhm.
Right? Our partners.
Yeah.
So it's those things creeping in. But the thing is, when we start to live in that space of complacency, when we start to kind of internalize those negative self thoughts, we
Mhm.
then project that onto our partners, and we start to create that wedge between us. And then we do things like say, well, if he was 20 pounds lighter, if he would get home earlier, if he would do more, for the kids, if he would do this and if he would do that, or she.
Yep.
But here's the thing, right? When we start to do that, we start to put all of the control in our partner's ballpark,
Yeah.
whether or not they deserve it. And here's the other thing, right? Sometimes we're filtering their actions through inadequacies that we feel, and we maybe I always say, I'm not exonerating anybody's partner.
Sure.
We may be judging them a little bit too harshly.
Yeah.
And the important thing to remember right throughout this is that we can't control how our partners act.
Mhm.
What we can control is how we act. What we control is what we think in response to what they are saying and doing. What we control is what we do in response to what they are saying and doing.
Mm.
All right. And that is where it begins, that decision to take charge of our own thoughts and actions. And when you take control of your thoughts and actions, you take control of your feelings.
Yeah.
That's where it starts.
That is a lot. And that is some really good truth bombs and nuggets for us to go back and look at ourselves in the mirror. Cause I know I have had these moments, right? Where, especially like you said, that like end of 30s, where I had kind of like what I call my oh shit moment and realized like I'm going to die someday. Like, oh my God, like for real, like it's going to be game over. What am I doing with my life? And my
Yes.
husband would sit there and be so content. He's like, yeah, this is a great life and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you mean this is a great life? Like, no, I want this. I want that. I want to like have passion again. And I want to
Mhm.
I don't know, I want to do something other than my job. And it felt like my whole world was turning upside down. And he's sitting
Yes.
over here like, everything is great. And I'm like, how can it be great? Are you lying to me? Are you having an affair? Like, what are you like?
What's
But I
going
was
on?
projecting all this stuff onto him. It's
Yes.
really toxic. And yeah, so we definitely had our fair share of some bumpy moments.
Mhm.
But when we started to really look at each other and go, okay, like, yes, we love each other, but we are not spending enough time together. We are not connecting on that deeper level. We're like roommates. What?
Mhm.
So we
That's
like
it.
signed up for ballroom dancing, and like we started doing things together and having a date night every Friday night and going to
Mhm.
dinner and chatting. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is what it's supposed to be like. This is
Right?
awesome.
Yes, yes. Oh my God, I'm so glad you mentioned the date night because that's a huge thing. And I
Yeah.
keep telling people it's not a checklist item. They're like, okay, well,
Right.
every Tuesday we go out for a movie. No, if it's something that you do on a regular basis, mix it up.
Yeah.
Create create those special moments of connection. I'm not saying it's easy when you have kids and you have
No.
to schedule everything around it. All I'm telling you is that make it a priority so that it can actually happen. Right? Because kids are going to grow up and move away. Divorce rates for empty nesters are going up because people have lost their connection to each other. And when the kids are gone, the glue that was holding them together is no longer there and they go
Right.
their separate ways. So
Yeah.
don't let that happen. Now is the time to do something. Now is the time to spend, even if it's 5 minutes every day, doing something fun with your partner. Do it because it's the two of you. There's nobody
Yes, for
else.
sure. Yeah, and the biggest thing that I've found is that the phone. You gotta put away the phone. And I call him out on it sometimes. Like if we're sitting there, I'm like, "What's in your phone that's more important than me?" And he'll smile, and he'll be like, "Nothing." I'm like, "Okay." Then can we put our phones away? Because the second he picks up his,
Exactly.
I'm like, "Well, I'll pick up mine and I'll look at something." And then he'll be
Right.
like, "Oh, well, you were on your phone," and I'm like, "I was on my phone because you were on
Because you
your
are
phone."
your phone.
Yeah, so now I just call him out, and sometimes he'll be like, "Look, I have this thing that I need to look up, or I'm trying to order
Yeah.
parts for work, or like
Yeah.
whatever," right? And I'll be like, "Okay, cool, but I know that this is what you're doing, and this is how long it's taking you, and
Yeah.
then we're gonna hang out afterwards." So it's
Exactly.
important to have
Exactly.
that open communication because I don't know about you, but my partner can't read my mind.
No.
Unfortunately,
No.
I'd like him to, but he can't. And so I just sit there and I end up stewing over these things, and it just drives the wedge further and further.
Exactly. Exactly. That is so, so, so key, especially when we're talking about, oh, I want you to support me more. You
Yeah.
know what? He doesn't know what support means, or she doesn't know what support means because you haven't explained it to them. And on top of that, have you even explained it to you?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah. Would you know what support looked like if you got it? Yeah.
Exactly. So how can you complain you don't have it if you don't know what it is?
Yeah. And this is so important because I think when our relationships are off kilter, when they're not where we want them to be, that impacts everything else in our life. Like it impacted me in my job. It impacted me in as being a mom, as being a friend, right? Because I was always like frustrated or annoyed or had this like extra baggage. I was toxic.
Mhm.
But when you get your relationship in a really good place, then the other things start to follow.
They do. They really, really do. When I just think about how, I mean, as I tell people, I'm not that long. I mean, we've been together for 24 years, but that period of starting a business was very, very rocky.
Yeah.
And I really had to come to the realization. And I mean, thankfully I had my own coach who was helping me through that too, that there were obstacles that I was placing in my own way.
Yeah.
And then I was happy to blame somebody else because it's always easier to blame somebody else
Of
than to look at
course.
yourself. So
Yeah. And I love that you had a coach because it's like our relationships are that important. They are worth investing in. They are worth putting some money behind it to get it on the right track. So if anyone
yeah,
has been thinking about doing that, whether it's, working with a relationship mentor, a life coach, a therapist, like whatever it is, like
do
make
it.
the investment
Yes.
because you're worth it. Your relationship is worth it.
And the divorce is probably going to cost you much more.
Ooh, hello. Truth bomb. Yeah.
So
Yeah. It sure is.
spend some money now and get it
Yep.
on track. It's going to take much less. And this is where I tell people too, because they're like, well, we're not that bad.
Right.
Why are you waiting for it to get that bad before you get help?
Yeah.
Nothing is wrong with getting help. You know what? Parenting. Just because you're a parent, just because you had parents, does that mean you knew all the things about parenting? No.
I'm still learning.
It's oh God, yes.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with our relationships. We actually weren't born with the roadmap for it. So
Right.
take your advice, take your guidance, apply it. It's a work in progress, but it's worth every effort you put into it.
Yes, work in progress. Enjoy the journey. Don't worry so much about the destination. Like, just keep working on it. I love that.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, Kim, I could talk to you all day. I can't believe that 30 minutes has already passed, but I do have two quick questions that you can just kind of rapid fire at us because I want to make sure we touch on this. Anyone who is watching, if you could give them your biggest tip, because they got to pay for the rest, but if you could give them your biggest tip for how they can add some romance into the relationship, what would you tell them to do?
Flirt with your
Oh,
partner.
yeah.
So, I mean, quick peck on the cheek. No. The 6-second kiss. Doesn't sound like long. Google it. Just Google it. Google the
Yes.
6-second kiss and do it today. And send your partner little dirty messages.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Why not? I love to text him. He never knows what to say back. He'll just send me like a blushy face or something. But I'm like, yeah, whatever. He knows what I'm saying. You know, it gets him like, he feels good about himself, right?
If that's too much, send a sweet one. But
yes.
reach out, connect, have fun with your partner.
Yeah, I love that. Flirting is so fun. Why don't we do that more? We need to do that more. Everyone go flirt today. Okay. If you could say one thing to the women who know they want to make a change, maybe in their career and do something different, but they don't know how to get started, what would you say to them?
Start. No, literally. I know it's like you don't know how to get started, but you have an idea, right?
Right.
Just like literally open up a web page, start a blog, go to Pinterest, start an account. Just start something and then start building your network of other women just like you who are building their businesses and understand all of the space, all of the resources that you need, and call on them.
Ah, I love that. Solid advice. I knew you would be amazing, but I mean, you always exceed expectations. So thank you, Kim, so much for being here. If anyone needs help with a relationship and they want to get in touch with you, what should they do? How can they get in contact with you?
All right. Well, you can head over to my new but and still partly under construction website, but it is live.
I love that.
Just do it, right?
I
Just
know. You're literally demonstrating the advice that you just gave, right? Iterate your way to success. Just do it. Okay. Tell us the website name. Sorry.
All right. It's kimkdsilva.com. Yep. Or find me on Facebook. I've got a Facebook group there too. So
yes, you do have a Facebook group. I'm a part of it. She is a ton of fun to be around. So go check that out. And I know since you're in my Facebook group watching this, y'all are on Facebook. So it's an easy move just to add that group. What's the name of it? Moms, Marriages, something like that. But
Moms, Marriage, and Relationships, Bringing the Love Back.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your light with us today. It is always an honor to hold space for you. And I just can't wait to see what your business becomes. And I love watching your amazing family and relationship blossom. So keep being a great role model and inspiration for us all.
Thank you, Karen. It was a pleasure being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and have a great day and go rock your reinvention.